It's official. Oklahoma is not dead on the recruiting trail. They land their 5-star prospect in the 2026 recruiting class, Jake Krell.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire at USA Today Sports. And on today's show, we're going to break down Josh Pate doubling down on the Oklahoma Sooners. He's not shying away from his thoughts on OU for 2025. We'll also discuss the John Matier gambling imbroglio that came down over the last 48 hours. We'll do that in segment 2, but we're going to start off with some really positive news as the Oklahoma Sooners get their guy, one of the top players on their recruiting board for 2026, Jake Krell, the 5-star prospect by ESPN, committing to Oklahoma on Tuesday.
Yeah, it kind of shocked the world. Actually, really didn't, because Oklahoma's been trending for Jake Krell for a while. But
a long time.
The fact that it actually came to fruition, because we were also trending heavily for Davian Gross, and it did not come down for that. But if there's one position that I knew that Oklahoma was definitely going to drop the bags or whatever you want to say and show that they're not Broklahoma, it was going to be for an elite edge. And Jake Krell is one that is ridiculously good. Like, whenever you talk about him just as a player, he's one of those players that you definitely want to get your hands on, especially because for Oklahoma, the most important thing is you need to have elite edge play if you want to survive in the SEC. You have to have elite interior play if you want to survive in the SEC. And Jake Krell gives you that. The dude is just a monster. His bend is stupid. His speed, his hand placement. John, the minute that I saw that Oklahoma had a chance with him, I was like, I don't care what you do. Figure it out, because we're going to need him in about a year.
He's a very well-versed pass rusher. He's not somebody that just relies on speed, just relies on power, just relies on his athleticism. He's very technically sound. And I think that's the thing that makes him so special already, is that he's very technically sound, and he's also an elite athlete. He also has good bend. He also has great hands. And he really is the total package at defensive end. And so when you get him on campus and you continue to build him up in the strength and conditioning program, you continue to develop him, the sky is really the limit for him. I mean, he wins on the outside, getting around the offensive tackles, bending around them. He's able to set up his pass rush move so well that he can beat offensive tackles to the inside, which is like a big, big no-no for offensive tackles. Do not get beat inside, because that's a direct line to the quarterback. But he just sets up his pass rush so well and so smartly that this is a guy that really has a very, very high ceiling, and somebody that could have the potential of being a top 10 NFL draft pick down the road.
Yeah, especially, and that's the other thing too, with that, Oklahoma's going to lose 2 players at the end of the season. R. Mason Thomas is gone. So is Marvin Jones Jr. They're both gone. There's nothing you can do about it. They are both definitely going to be out. And since they're going to be gone, you need to have somebody that's going to be there as a replacement. And Jake Krell is the dude that could be the player that could replace them. He's one that can actually play as a potential true freshman. He's not one that you have to, that you'll work on his technique and make sure that he's really good. But overall, John, the biggest plus for Oklahoma in this one is that if we're going to pay a 5-star like him, you want him on the field. And he's one that's going to get on the field very early. No R. Mason Thomas, no Marvin Jones Jr. You still have Taylor Wine, Daniel Collier, PJ Adebawore, as well as Wyatt Gilmore. But besides that, it's young. It's CJ Nixon, right? It's going to be Alexander Shield Knight. So with that, in that case, Jake Krell could find a way and find an opportunity to get on the field a lot earlier than people will expect.
So much of it's going to depend on how well does he hold up in the run game. And that's going to be the biggest challenge for any defensive lineman coming from high school to college, even playing at IMG Academy, playing against some of the best programs across the country. That's not always going to be a smooth transition because it's just a different game. The physicality, the level of competition, the size that you're going to have to go up against week in, week out at the collegiate level. At the same time, the technique is so sound. That's the part that a lot of times players struggle with the most is, okay, that guy might be bigger than me, but if I'm still technically sound, I'm going to be able to hold up at the point of attack. I'm going to be able to set the edge, and I'm going to be able to do my job and do it well. And to me, again, this is one of those guys that you can project could potentially be in a significant role as a true freshman because he's so technically sound. Reminds you of Jaden Jackson. I know the IMG Academy thing is going to be the easiest comparison there, but Jaden Jackson was very technically sound as a high school player, played with great leverage, great pad level. There wasn't a whole lot that you had to do to fix his pad level. So much offensive linemen, defensive linemen, they want to get up really quickly out of their stance. But Jaden Jackson plays so low and plays with such great leverage. That was going to be what allowed him to step onto the field early because he wasn't going to get bullied off the point of attack. He wasn't going to get bullied in the interior against the SEC. And that came to be true. The same potential for Jake Krell.
Yeah, there was one guy that looked at him, especially when he was looking at like some of the other schools in like Colorado or whatnot. He mentioned he's like, he could be like another Max Crosby type, just because of the way that he how fast, like I said, low he stays, his bend, and his ability to get around those edges so fast. And I could totally see it. The kid's game is best. Heck, Brian Smith over at the portal here for Locked On Podcast Network, he was talking about how as a true freshman, he thought he was the most talented dude on the field at those camps. As a true freshman, that's really hard to do, especially with the fact that he's only, 240-ish, right? He was like 220s, probably around that time, 215, 210-ish, going in as a true freshman. And he thought that he was probably the most talented dude out there as a true freshman. That's high praise, especially with all the camps that we know Brian has gone to.
Yeah, and if only you have to do is get his weight up to maybe a 250 range, like you don't need to bulk him up to 270. Like maybe you've done with a Taylor Wine, some of the defensive ends, and Ethan Downs. You let him play at 250 because he's strong enough, he's fast enough, he's quick enough that he's going to be a menace on the edge against offensive tackles. So big time win for Miguel Chavis, for Brent Venables on the recruiting trail, beating out Texas, beating out Ole Miss. And this was one of those that a week ago when we were talking about Jake Krell, people were really worried because he moved up that commitment date.
Yeah.
And there was no set in stone commitment date. Everybody kind of presumed it was going to be October. And I think the understanding was he wanted to kind of wait and see into the season a little bit. But then when he set a commitment date, everybody got really, really worried. They panicked. They freaked out. I was like, wait a minute, let's just see what happens, because Oklahoma's developed a really good relationship with this kid and with the family. Miguel Chavis seems to have done a really great job recruiting him, that there were predictions favoring Oklahoma for Krell months ago. And then they were able to close the deal. And I think not only does it speak to the relationship that Oklahoma's built, it speaks to the confidence that he has in Oklahoma's program this season and beyond. Faith over fear. Absolutely loved that line being put out there that it's a quote from Jake Krell. It's this belief that Oklahoma's going to be good. I'm not going to buy into all the negative recruiting that's out there.
Yeah, and just the fact that he picked Oklahoma just like, because initially it was October was mentioned because he said he wanted to see what October looks like. So we all anticipated, Red River. That's basically the battle, because it's what it was. It was Oklahoma versus Texas. I mean, Ole Miss was a hat on the table, but for the most part, it was Oklahoma versus Texas. And so everybody was like, oh, okay, so he wants to see who wins that game. And so Oklahoma needed to go out there and win it. That's going to be critical for them in order to win his services. And then when, like I said, he moved it up, we were kind of like, this might not be a good thing. And shoot, he shocked us all. I guess Oklahoma picked up the phone and said, hey, man, you want in? It's yours. Let's go. We've got some other players we're going after. Let's make it happen. Let's do this as a team. And he trusts the relationship, and he's ready to win SEC and national championships with Oklahoma.
Let's go. I kept the faith. Let's just be real. I was not.
I did too.
I mean,
that's all I kept saying.
Would it have surprised me if he picked Texas? No, but it also doesn't surprise me at all that he picked Oklahoma.
I would have been a little surprised, to be honest.
Well,
yeah. Texas would have been just. It just didn't feel right.
No, it never feels right.
Never does.
But anyway, can we also? I'm so tired of watching Texas fans try to downplay a player that doesn't commit to them. Just can we get over that one day? Can you guys just admit you lost one and it's okay? You're not going to win them all, and he's still a good player. It's okay to admit that, guys. It's fine. He's still great.
Yeah,
anyway,
it actually is okay, guys.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's just friendly competition between rivals. It's whatever. Anyway, coming up, we're going to discuss what all went down with John Matier and Venmo here next on Locked On Sooners. Ever wish managing your money was easier? Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. For my wife and I, we've been looking at ways that we can save on our spending in particular, and we found that, man, fast food has kind of been killing us. And so we're trying to figure out ways that we can cook more at home, meal prep a little bit better, and all that came into clear picture with Monarch Money. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're doing a little bit of a sandwich method here on Locked On Sooners today. We talked about Jake Krell, getting the big commitment from him. We're going to finish with what Josh Pate had to say in the JP poll about the Oklahoma Sooners. But let's talk about what went down with John Matier over the last 48 hours. It came out late Monday evening with some screenshots, which anytime there are screenshots in play, you always have to be a little bit skeptical about what it was. That John Matier was involved in some quote unquote, and I got the air quotes up there, sports gambling because of several transactions between himself and teammates at Washington State labeled sports gambling.
I'm sorry. Do we really think that, kids would really incriminate themselves like that? I mean, I know that John Matier, when it happened, it was November of 2022. He was a true freshman. But do you think he's that idiotic that he's going to put sports gambling in there and actually be sports gambling? I know everybody wants to say, you never know. I totally understand the skepticism and thought process behind that, but I still think it's pretty ridiculous. I hate that we have to talk about it, John. Why are we got to talk about it?
This to me reminds me of when you were in college with your buddies and your mom calls and you pick up the phone and all your buddies start saying a bunch of really inappropriate things really loudly over the phone or over the air so that your mom is hearing all these really inappropriate things, right? Or your girl calls and they start making really inappropriate sounds or, comments to try and get you, one, flustered, or two, just to troll you. Like, that's to me all that this sounded like, is just a bunch of couple college kids being dumb, mentioning things that they shouldn't be talking about. And that's really just what it comes down to, is just a bunch of college kids just being dumb.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought about it too. Is like, this is just guys being dumb, guys having fun, clowning. I mean, when you go further into it, before he went private on it, it was even more inappropriate stuff that you saw on there. We're not going to talk about that here, but there was a bunch of that to go with it. It's just stuff that that 18-year-old boys would typically do. I mean, 17-year-old boys, 16-year-old boys, 19, 20.
40
doing dumb stuff
on certain podcast networks.
I've seen that before as well. Yes, at 40, I've seen 50-year-olds say some stuff and do some stuff in the most inappropriate ways. But hey, that is exactly what it was. It was just dumb, just being dumb guys. And he said it in his statement of, we were, being young, dumb guys, and this is basically what it was. And it wasn't anything more than that. And I wasn't actually gambling or whatnot. And I know that it's illegal or it's frowned upon, blah, blah, blah. And, so basically I understand the seriousness of the matter, but recognize that taken out of context, those Venmo descriptions suggest otherwise. Yes, they do suggest otherwise. But we also know that people aren't that stupid. There's a level of stupidity we expect out of kids. But that right there is like your kid having your wallet in their hands and saying, no, I'm not taking your credit card, while taking your credit card out of your... No, they're not going to do that. They're going to sneak and put the wallet in a bad spot and forget where they were supposed to put it and have the card. That's how they get caught, because they put it in the wrong spot. Not with them standing in front of you saying, no, I'm not taking your credit card.
Right.
Let's think of it that way. It's just, you could tell it was just boys being dumb.
Yeah.
But I hate that it became a scandal online.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that anytime anybody has something good happening, it doesn't take long for somebody to try and manipulate situations as well. I don't know if you all read the article. Dan Wetzel did a great piece, really sad piece over at ESPN about the ways athletes are being exploited right now online by scammers around the world in some really heinous, inappropriate ways. And it's a terrible story, but also one that everybody needs to read because of the impact that it had on one kid in particular. But when I'm watching all this go down with John Matier online, that was the first thing that popped into my head is who even began to look at all this. And the person that, quote unquote, again, air quotes, broke the story isn't even a real person from a real account that doesn't even work where he said he worked. It was all this, to me, it all screamed of, we're going to try and make John Matier look as terrible as possible. Because 2.5 weeks before a season in which he might contend for the Heisman, Oklahoma might contend for a playoff spot, and we want to throw a wrench into all of it, whether it's to try and exploit and get money out of the Matier family, because it's been very well documented what he's getting paid through an NIL relationship with the University of Oklahoma, or it's to sabotage Oklahoma's season. And listen, whether these transactions were sports gambling or not, why did they come to light August 12 of 2025 and not before?
The one thing I could probably say to go with that is we're in the dog days of college football. We're just we're about 2 weeks away from actual games. Next week you've got week 0, and a rival team, player, coach, somebody, more so rival fan, got bored and decided to go search all of these kids' Venmo accounts to see what they could find. And then boom, here we are. Heck, I just saw all the stuff from like Arch Manning flying around, Bryce Underwood. Putting in ridiculous Venmo captions has been a thing for years, especially since Venmo came out and they started to, put the public stuff out there. People have been putting ridiculous stuff on there for a while. And so that's kind of expected from kids to put something stupid out there. And unfortunately, it's one of those that now, like I said, that they're now going to be completely watched. And people went around and started searching all these players. And it's just funny now. Moneyline Matier is the name. You're going to call him that. But John, I don't know if you realize this. The last quarterback at Oklahoma that had to put out a statement for doing something inappropriate was Baker Mayfield in that Kansas game. He had the little note app deals similar to what John Matier put out there. Then the man walked out there and won the Heisman. Can we get the same? Maybe, possibly.
I don't know. And the University of Oklahoma almost acted like this was not a big deal as well. Like they said, hey, listen, we treat sports gambling seriously. We run everybody through continuing education on sports gambling. The NCAA has not informed us of any investigations into the University of Oklahoma or any sports gambling. Pretty much a strong, everybody just move on. This is ridiculous that we even have to talk about it. And again, this is not the same as what happened up with Iowa and Iowa State, where a lot of those guys were actually betting on games they were involved in. Very, very different story than what we're dealing with here. It's time to move on. Again, 2.5 weeks until the regular season.
It's happening so
And
fast.
I know a lot of you wondered why we didn't discuss this on our Tuesday episode. And part of it was we wanted to see more information come out so that we can respectfully and reasonably discuss what went down. We didn't want to jump the gun on anything and, overreact to some screenshots that got posted on X.
Not gonna lie, I didn't think it was gonna actually go any further than where it's at now. I really did not believe that we were gonna be talking about this again. I 100% was like,
well, and the only reason we're talking about it is because Matier put out a statement and Oklahoma put out a statement.
Yep.
That's really it.
The minute that the school put out the statement and Matier put out a statement, I was like, oh, yep, John, we're going to have to talk about this. And John kind of looked at me and was like, please, no. Yep. Got to do it. Got to talk about it because people are going to ask. People ask me. I saw people in the comments section on my channel saying, talk about the Matier situation. We need an understanding of what went down. Okay.
I was sitting in a Target parking lot on Tuesday afternoon while my wife was doing back to school shopping, writing up a story for Sooners Wire that I didn't really want to write, but had to write it because it's the biggest story in sports over the last 48 hours. But anyway, I hope that satisfies and satiates all of your John Matier Venmo discussion. I think the funniest thing that could happen out of this would be Venmo and John Matier coming to a name, image, and likeness deal for 2025 and 2026. And I think that would cook. And John Matier could be the spokesman for, hey,
PayPal, pick up the phone, man. Go ahead and make it happen.
Yeah. Set your transactions to private, folks. Anyway, moving on. Josh Pate, who's been very high on the Oklahoma Sooners this offseason, continues to be so. We'll discuss the JP poll and where he had John Matier ranked among college football quarterbacks coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, we've had several polls come out over the last week and a half. We had the coaches poll that had Oklahoma just outside of the top 25 as the highest vote getter in the country, according to the coaches. The AP poll that came out on Monday had Oklahoma at number 18. If you didn't think that was positive enough, our guy Josh Pate at the Josh Pate College Football Show, now with On3, released his preseason JP poll, the power rating system of Josh Pate, and had the Oklahoma Sooners at number 10.
Nobody believes that Oklahoma is going to be that good. There's no way that anybody thinks that Oklahoma should be considered a top 10 team. Now, let me get you guys, for the uninitiated, this is a power rating, not rankings. He doesn't rank the teams. He puts the teams on there based upon where Vegas believes they would be favored. So anybody after them means that they would most likely be a dog against Oklahoma on a neutral site. And so when you look at this bad boy here, John, JP thinks that only Texas and Alabama will be favorites in a game against Oklahoma. Florida may be a favorite as well, but LSU, Ole Miss, Michigan, South Carolina, Tennessee would all be dogs against Oklahoma. Isn't that fascinating?
It's incredibly fascinating. And also consider that Oklahoma was the fourth highest ranked SEC team on that list.
Fourth. It's pretty high.
Behind Texas, Georgia, Alabama. That's it. And you mentioned
Florida.
Texas and Alabama. Those are the only two teams on Oklahoma's schedule that Josh Pate would have favored over Oklahoma.
It's crazy to believe that. Because, I mean, when you look at the schedule, you're like, okay, Oklahoma's schedule is super tough. It's going to be really, really hard. How exactly will Oklahoma navigate this? And I have been in the mindset, and I've been the vocal one, just like you, John, saying, doesn't think the schedule's going to be as tough people think. Doesn't seem like this schedule's going to be as tough as everybody's is expecting, because is it really going to be that tough? Is the schedule, are these teams going to be as good as everybody's expecting? But when you look at JP's poll, He's kind of telling us that now. He's saying, I don't know about LSU and Ole Miss, which LSU one's the one that surprised me the most on this. And I'm wondering if it's really around that offensive line, because last year I was actually talking to somebody earlier today, actually yesterday, and we were talking about LSU, and he was like, LSU kind of struggled in the run game, even with all those NFL linemen. They kind of struggled. I was like, I didn't think about it that way. Well, that line is basically new, and the question is, will it struggle again this year, even with the veteran presence of Garrett Nussmeier and those wide receivers? And I was like, that's something to think about, because we know Texas has got 4 new linemen. Basically, they've replaced a lot of offensive linemen, so we're waiting to see what that experience and what that gel looks like. LSU, same, but you was expecting them to be better. But when you really think about it, that was a valid point. Now we got questions, like serious ones.
Yeah, I think LSU is one of those teams that I think has a really high ceiling, but they've got questions they have to answer along the offensive line, similar to Oklahoma. Yeah. But I think with what everybody feels about Oklahoma's interior, with EPL, Troy Everett, Fabeche Wewu, excuse me. Maybe there's a little bit of confidence there. Yeah, Derek Simmons and Jacob Sexton. Maybe there's some confidence there. But yeah, I think more than that, though, it speaks to what Josh Pate thinks of Oklahoma's defense, which is what a lot of people think, is that Oklahoma's defense has a chance to be one of the very best in the nation in 2025. And I think that's probably why we're seeing Texas put up there at number 1. Yes, Arch Manning has a chance to be really, really good. Those wide receivers, Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, they're going to be really, really good as well. But the offensive line is a question. But the defense is not. The defense is going to be really, really good. And that's something you can count on, you can bank on. For Oklahoma, they're a top 10 team because their defense is going to be really good and the offense is going to be much better than what it was last year.
Agreed. And that defensive line, man, that's the thing that number 1 in the SEC. A lot of people were saying it. I ain't the only one saying it. Like me, argue with your mom if you want to. Yeah. It's being said by people that believe it, and I'm kind of in the mindset of believing it too. Could be possible.
Well, and beyond that, everything just feels different. This feels like a more confident team. This feels like a team that's ready to go win some games. And I think the other surprise here is how low Josh Pate is on South Carolina. And that's with a Lenora Sellers, who a lot of people believe is the best quarterback in college football entering 2025. Yeah. And is a Heisman contender and has some really intriguing weapons on offense. The issue with South Carolina is they lost a ton on their defense. Yes, they bring back Dylan Stewart, who's fantastic, but you lost Kyle Kennard. You lost one of the most athletic and explosive safeties to the NFL draft. You lost interior defensive linemen. You lost linebackers. Like, that's a group that is going to have to answer some questions on the defensive side of the ball for everybody to feel more confident in who they are. Ole Miss, I think, the same way. You lost a ton off of that team that just missed out on the playoff. And so that one doesn't surprise me that they're behind Oklahoma, but more so South Carolina being back at 17. That one does surprise me a little bit.
Yeah. That one is the one that made me say, 17. That he must, and I need to go listen to the show to really get all the context. But for me, just us being able to look at this at our opinion from here, he must really have questions about that defense, John. Because there's been a lot of people that's talked about that defense. I've heard people ask questions saying, look, Dylan Stewart is the elite, but you ain't got Kyle Kennard no more. Mm-mm. Right? There's something that there's been a few people that have pointed that out on the defense side. And it's funny because on even the squad show, you guys will hear that coming up very soon too. Gordy asked the question, who's the top receiver for South Carolina?
Is it Nick
Who's
Harbor?
The running back? I mean, we've been saying that for 3 years for Nick Harbor, right? Has it happened yet?
No.
I was like, fair point. Fair point. So we don't know what it's going to be yet. We got to see it. We got to see who Lenore Sellers turns into his top guy. And then at that point, we'll have a better idea.
Yeah, there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered. Excuse me. And I think what was most intriguing to me when I looked at this is all of the teams that are breaking in new starting quarterbacks, guys that had never started before, or guys that started a few games like in the second half of last year that are now going to be leading the team, like DJ Lagway or Marcel Reed at their spots. And there's a lot of quarterback turnover, which is why I'm kind of higher on Oklahoma, because yes, they bring in a new quarterback, but it's a very experienced quarterback, somebody who's in his third year at the collegiate level. He's got a full season of starting snaps under his belt, and he's got continuity with his offensive coordinator. That kind of stuff matters, man. And he's a guy that has a chance to do something special this year.
That's true. Got a chance. We'll see.
Okay, we'll see. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. For your second listen of the day, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner.
Things are looking up.
Poll season.
The best season.